He didn't whisper it. He said it into a microphone. My father had the microphone in his hand, smiling like this was just another proud moment. He gestured toward me and laughed lightly. "She cleans houses," he said. "That's what she does." A few people chuckled politely. My sister looked away. I stood there in a dress I paid for myself, holding a gift no one in that room understood. They thought they knew my story. They thought they understood my limits. They thought the word cleaner defined my worth. But the groom wasn't laughing, and when he stood up and reached for that microphone, the tone in the room shifted in a way no one expected. That was the moment everything changed.
The chandelier above me was the kind that costs more than most people's cars. I know, because I'd cleaned one just like it 6 months ago. 30 feet up on a scaffold, wiping each crystal, teardrop by hand, while the estate owner's assistant stood below and told me to be careful. Not because she was worried about me falling, because she was worried about the chandelier. That's the thing about invisible work. You see everything. Nobody sees you. My sister Vivian's wedding reception was the most expensive party my family had ever thrown, and every inch of it was designed to announce something. That we had arrived somewhere. That the right choices had been made. That the story of our family had a particular shape. And I was the part of the shape nobody mentioned out loud. I stood near the back of the grand ballroom in a navy dress. I'd ironed 3 times that morning. Simple, intentional. My mother had called me the week before and said, with the warmth of a dental appointment, "Please don't make tonight about yourself." I had almost laughed. As if I ever had. The venue was one of those converted historic buildings downtown, all restored marble floors and arched ceilings, painted with soft gold leaf. The kind of place where the acoustics make every laugh sound like it belongs there, and every silence feels curated. I didn't belong there, according to everyone who loved me. Cousins swept past with their air kiss greetings and that particular brand of polite interrogation that functions as social ranking. "And what are you doing these days?" My Aunt Diane, who had the energy of someone perpetually being interviewed, asked me this while already scanning the room over my shoulder. "I run a property services company," I said. Her eyes returned to me briefly. "Oh, lovely." She said lovely the way people say bless your heart. Full of softness, empty of anything real. Then she pivoted toward someone with a more interesting answer. I watched her go. Around the main table near the windows, my father was holding court. He had that particular posture he reserved for audiences he wanted to impress. Chest forward, wineglass tilted at exactly the angle of a man who has opinions about wine. I could hear his voice carrying over the music. "Vivian has always had vision," he was saying. "Always reaching. You just knew she was built for something larger. Someone must have asked about me, because I saw the shift. His hand lifting in that careless wave, the gesture that meant dismissal dressed as affection. My other one? Oh, she keeps busy. She cleans houses." Laughter followed, the gentle, table linen kind, not cruel, which almost made it worse. Cruelty at least requires engagement. This was indifference. This was me as a footnote in someone else's story, mentioned only to make the contrast more flattering. She cleans houses. 3 words. I'd been reduced to 3 words at the table where my father sat with people who wrote checks with commas in them. He didn't know what those 3 words actually meant. He didn't know about the winter 2 years ago when I couldn't afford a second employee and worked a 16-hour day alone, cleaning a corporate office complex on a deadline, hands cracked from the cold, knees aching on hard floors, running calculations in my head about whether I could make payroll. He didn't know about the contracts I'd studied at midnight, teaching myself the language of liability and service agreements because I couldn't afford an attorney yet. He didn't know about the government forms, the insurance negotiations, the client calls I took in parking lots between jobs because I didn't have an office. He just knew that I cleaned. My company, which I'd named after a stone, that's only valuable when it's been refined under pressure, serviced 43 properties across the city by that point. Luxury residential towers, corporate headquarters, a boutique hotel group that had been a referral from a client, whose penthouse I'd personally overseen. My team had grown from 2 people to 19. We had a wait list. But at this table, in this room, I was a 3-word sentence delivered with a wave. I stepped outside onto the balcony that overlooked the atrium below, a sweep of iron railing, and warm light from the windows. The night air was the kind of cold that feels clarifying, like it's burning away anything that isn't essential. I stood there for a while, just looking at the city, lights, and letting the sounds of the reception fall back into something muffled and manageable. You should hear what they say about you when they forget to be polite about it. The voice came from my left. I turned. The groom was standing about 10 feet away. Jacket open, tie loosened, not disheveled, but like someone who'd briefly stepped out of his own performance and was deciding how long he could afford to stay out. Caspian Mercer. My sister's husband as of 3 hours ago, 34. Self-made in the way that people who are actually self-made never need to announce. I'd met him twice before tonight. He'd always been cordial in a way that felt genuine rather than practiced. "You should be inside," Moore, I said. "It's your wedding." I know what it is." There was a small smile in it. I needed a minute." We stood in the same silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable exactly, but charged with something unspoken. The particular tension of two people who have both been underestimated and recognize it in each other. "They're not wrong, technically," I said. "I do clean." "That's not what I mean." He turned to look at me directly. "I mean, I know exactly what you do. I've known for a while." Something in my chest shifted. "What do you mean?" Caspian reached into his jacket. Not for a phone, but for nothing. Just a steadying gesture. He looked at me carefully, the way people look at a contract before signing. "My development group acquired 3 new commercial properties this year," he said. "High-end residential, 2 corporate towers. When we went to select a facilities management partner, my operations director pulled together a short list of companies in the region with the capacity and track record we needed." He paused. "Your company was at the top." I didn't speak. "I did my own research," he continued. "I always do. When I saw the name of the founder and CEO, I thought it had to be a coincidence. Then I confirmed it." His voice was even. "You built something serious. Real growth metrics. Client retention numbers that most companies in your space would be embarrassed to try to match. A reputation that isn't built on marketing. It's built on the work." The city lights below blurred slightly. "Your family doesn't know," he said. It wasn't a question. "They know I clean houses," I said. And even I could hear the edge under it. Caspian nodded slowly. He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the same lights I'd been studying. "That changes things," he said. "Which things?" He didn't answer directly. Inside, I could hear the music shifting into something louder, the kind of transition that signals a speech or a toast. He looked back toward the ballroom, then back at me. "My operations director and I were planning to formalize the partnership next week," he said. "Multi-year contract. 3 properties to start." He looked at me steadily. "I wanted you to know that the person signing that contract isn't a secret." "Not to me." I stood very still. "You're telling me this now," I said carefully. "Tonight? Why?" He held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. "Because in about 10 minutes, my new father-in-law is going to make a toast," he said. "And I have some thoughts about what gets said at that table." He straightened his jacket, glanced back through the glass doors at the reception beyond, then looked at me one more time, not with pity, not with calculation. With something that felt dangerously close to respect. "You should come back inside," he said. And then he was gone. I stood alone on the balcony for 60 seconds more. The cold air pressed against my face. Below, the city carried on, indifferent and bright. Every lit window a place that someone had built, cleaned, managed, or maintained. The invisible architecture of everything that made the visible world function. I thought about what he'd said. "I wanted you to know that the person signing that contract isn't a secret." I thought about my father's hand, waving me away at the table. I thought about the word lovely, hollow as a painted shell, and then I straightened my shoulders, turned from the railing, and walked back through the glass doors into the warm noise of the reception. I didn't know exactly what was coming, but for the first time in a long time, I walked toward it without shrinking. The shift became noticeable during an ordinary conversation. A simple question received an unexpectedly careful answer. That careful tone didn't match the situation. It hinted at something being withheld. From that moment on, small inconsistencies stood out. Details that once aligned perfectly now felt slightly off. Assurances sounded rehearsed rather than sincere. The atmosphere grew more strategic than spontaneous. Trust wasn't openly questioned, but it was quietly measured. And that silent measurement began to change how everything moved forward. The ballroom felt different when I walked back in. Or maybe I did. The music had softened to something instrumental and low, the kind of background score that signals a room preparing itself for formality. Waitstaff moved quietly between tables, refilling glasses. The overhead lights had dimmed slightly, the way they do before a speech, the whole space tilting toward attention. I found my seat near the middle of the room. Not at the head table, not near my parents, somewhere in the comfortable geography of family, but not the important kind. I sat down, smoothed my dress, and reached for my water glass. My mother caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a look I'd been fluent in since childhood. The one that meant behave. Tonight is not about you. I held her gaze just long enough to let her know I'd received the message. Then I looked away first, which was new. At the head table, Caspian was already seated beside Vivian. My sister was luminous in the way that brides are engineered to be. Every detail considered, every angle flattering. She leaned into him and said something close to his ear, and he smiled and nodded, and from the outside it looked like a perfect moment. But I'd seen his face on that balcony. I knew something was shifting behind it. My father rose first. He had the glass before he had the words, which was his particular style, the gesture, announcing the intention while the mind caught up. He tapped the rim twice, waited for the room to settle, and then expanded into the silence the way he always did, like a man who had rehearsed being natural. "I want to say a few words about my daughter," he began, his voice warm and projected, "because tonight is about family, and I have never been more proud." He spoke for several minutes about Vivian, her grades, her choices, the arc of her life rendered as a series of correct decisions, each one validating the one before. He talked about Caspian with the specific enthusiasm of a man who understands that praising a son-in-law is also praising his own judgment in producing a daughter worth marrying. The room laughed when it was supposed to. It softened when it was supposed to. Then near the end, and I could feel it coming. "The way you feel weather before it arrives," he said. "And of course, we love all our children equally. All our children." As if saying my name out loud required a permit he hadn't applied for. "Our other daughter keeps herself busy," he said, with a smile that was aimed at the room rather than at me. "She works hard. Different path. We're proud of her too, in our way." In our way. 2 words that carried the entire weight of every family. Dinner where I'd been the wrong answer to a question nobody asked. A few people glanced at me. I kept my expression neutral. I had learned to keep it neutral a long time ago, not from weakness, but because I understood that certain rooms don't deserve your reaction until the moment is right. Then Caspian stood up. It was subtle at first. He simply rose from his chair while my father was still wrapping up, and the room registered it the way rooms register unexpected movement. A small ripple of attention, heads turning, spines straightening. My father noticed and graciously gestured, as if he'd planned to hand off the moment all along. Caspian didn't take the microphone right away. He stood with his hands relaxed, looking at the room, and let the quiet settle completely. "I'd like to say something," he said, "that I've been thinking about all evening." His voice carried without effort, clear, measured, the kind of voice that doesn't need volume because it already has weight. "Most of you know what I do professionally," he continued. "Commercial real estate development, property acquisition, large-scale projects." He paused. "What you may not know is that the success of those projects depends entirely on the quality of the people we partner with, operations, maintenance, facilities, the infrastructure that makes everything else possible." People were listening. The room had that particular attentiveness, like when a speech unexpectedly becomes interesting. This year, my company was looking for a new facilities management partner. It was a significant search. We needed someone with real capacity, real track record, real standards. He let that land. The firm we chose was outstanding by every measurable metric: client retention, operational efficiency, growth trajectory. The kind of company that makes the properties it touches better, consistently, quietly, without requiring recognition to do excellent work. He looked across the room then. Not dramatically, not like a moment in a film where the camera would slowly push in. Just a straightforward turn of his gaze, landing on me. "That company was founded and is run by someone in this room tonight," he said. I felt the shift before I could stop it. A warmth moving through my chest that I didn't have a name for yet. "I want to be specific," he said, "because specificity is respect." He turned slightly toward my parents' table. "Your daughter, your other daughter, built a company that employs nearly 20 people. that manages properties across this city at a level that luxury clients trust, that I trust. We signed a multi-year contract with her firm, and it is already among the best operational decisions my company has made. My father had gone very still. My mother's hand had stopped moving on the tablecloth. I don't say this to embarrass anyone, Caspian said evenly. I say it because the people who build real things deserve to have those things named out. Loud, he raised his glass. To Vivian, who I love, and to her sister, who has been running one of the most impressive small enterprises I've encountered quietly, without ceremony, and without anyone in this room apparently noticing. He drank, and the room, slowly at first, the way avalanches start, erupted. Not polite applause, not the careful, managed kind. Real applause, the kind that comes from genuine surprise, from a story resolving in a direction nobody predicted. Business contacts leaned toward each other. An uncle I hadn't spoken to in 3 years was nodding with a look on his face that I could only describe as recalibrating. I didn't stand up. I didn't need to. I sat in the warm noise of it and felt, for the first time in recent memory, fully visible. Vivian found me at the dessert table 40 minutes later. The party had shifted back into celebration, but the energy in the room was different now. Redistributed, like furniture rearranged in a space you thought you knew. People who'd looked through me earlier in the evening were suddenly finding reasons to make eye contact. 2 of my father's business associates had already stopped by my table with their cards. My sister came alone. No husband, no handler, no buffer. She was still beautiful in her dress, but the careful composure she'd worn all evening had loosened at the edges. She looked more than anything like someone trying to figure out how to say something true. "Did you plan that?" she asked. "No," I said, and it was the full truth. I didn't even know he knew until an hour ago. She absorbed that. He should have told me. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe he thought I deserved to have someone say it out loud." She looked at me for a long moment. Vivian and I had never been enemies. We'd been something more complicated. 2 daughters raised in the same house with entirely different experiences of it, shaped by the same love into entirely different kinds of loneliness. "I didn't know," she said quietly, "about your company, about any of it. I tried to tell you a couple of times." Her jaw tightened slightly. "I was busy." "I know," I said. "So was I." The silence between us wasn't hostile. It was honest, which was rarer and more useful. "I'm proud of you," she said finally. The words came out slightly uneven, like she wasn't entirely sure they'd fit through the opening she'd made, but she said them anyway. "Thank you," I said. "I mean that." She nodded once, pressed her lips together, and then moved back toward the center of the room, toward the music, and the light and the husband, who had just rewritten the evening, without being asked. My mother came last. She sat down across from me without preamble, which was itself unusual. She was a woman who narrated her movements. "I'm just going to sit here for a moment," as a form of control. Sitting in silence was not in her vocabulary, but she sat in silence now. "You should have told us," she said finally. Her voice had something in it I didn't recognize at first. It took me a moment to identify it. Embarrassment. Not on my behalf, on hers. "I tried," I said. "You told me to keep it simple. You said people didn't need to know the details." She looked at her hands. "I thought—" She stopped. Started again. "I thought it was a small thing. I thought you were managing. I didn't think—" "You didn't think it was worth understanding," I said. Not unkindly, just as a fact laid down between us where we could both see it. Her eyes glistened. "That's not—" But she didn't finish the sentence because I think she understood that finishing it would require a defense. She didn't quite have. "I'm not angry," I said. And that was also true, in the way that things can be true and complicated at the same time. "I just want you to understand the difference between knowing I work hard and knowing what I actually built." She nodded slowly. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me about it. From the beginning." So I did. 3 weeks later, I sat in my office on the 14th floor, not borrowed space, not a kitchen table, not a parking lot, and watched the city move through floor-to-ceiling windows. The paperwork for 2 new city contracts was open on my desk. My team had just cleared the first review on a proposal for a hospitality group that would be our largest single client to date. Caspian Mercer's company had already begun the formal transition of the first property to our management portfolio. His operations director was efficient and respectful, The kind of professional relationship built on clarity rather than performance. He stopped by the office once, briefly, on his way to a site visit. We didn't talk about the wedding. We talked about service timelines and access protocols and maintenance schedules. The real language of real work. As he was leaving, he paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth," he said. "I meant everything I said that night." "I know," I said. "That's why it landed." He nodded once and left. I turned back to the window. Somewhere in this city, my team was cleaning. Managing, maintaining, doing the quiet work that keeps the visible world functional and bright. 19 people who showed up every day to do something that mattered. Even when the world called it small, the sharpest kind of victory doesn't announce itself with noise. It arrives quietly, like a light turned on in a room that's been dark too long. No fanfare, no speech, just the sudden, irreversible fact that you can finally see everything clearly, and that no one will ever again be able to say they didn't know you were there.